Welcome, everybody. We are here live on 11. Yeah, what time is it? It's 6:48 p.m. November 25th, 11/25, 2024. It's a Monday night here on the lower east. I mean the lower Hudson River Valley of New York, the metropolitan area here, right outside New York City, on the phantom shores of the ghostly Hudson River of New York. You guys can join us here on the Space Water Podcast. Like and subscribe if you're just finding my channel. Of course, my name is Castaldo, and we are sponsored by the Mystical Spiral Store, where you could get your copper healing devices, copper jewelry, gemstones, crystals, all your needs for metaphysical work and Reiki healing right at the Mystical Spiral Store. Or if you just like to collect crystals and gemstones and you like to wear badass jewelry that also have healing, both physical and spiritual properties for your mind, body, and soul, go to the mysticalspiralstore.com. This is where you can get your most ethically sourced, highest quality products that also have healing capabilities for your mind, body, and soul. Check that out at the mysticalspiralstore.com. We're waiting for some people to join. Let me pull up the chat room. I don't know why it's lagging over here. See if I could get the chat room up. Yeah, I don't know why the chat room's not pulling up right now, but we got an interesting show for everybody tonight. I hope the mic's coming in well. You guys, I don't know if you saw the last show we did with Professor Chandra, but we talked about how there was a mini moon, one of the asteroids, 2024 PT5. That's actually today was the final day it will be part of our an orbit around as part of a second moon for Earth. And what's interesting is I think they found out that the origins of it are originally from our moon itself, the moon itself, that it's a chunk off of the moon, which it was basically coming back around to its original orbit. I guess it was a piece of the moon at one time. This is what astronomers are saying. I haven't looked more into it about that. But what I did find, of course, interesting is what we talked about in the podcast is that they have these markings on all these near space objects. Let me see if I can get a different screen up. Oh, here we go. Now I finally got the chat room. It's just slow moving for some time. So hopefully the internet's yeah, it seems the internet's all right. But for some reason the chat room is slow moving to pop up for me. So excuse me if I haven't seen you guys in the chat room yet. I don't know how many people are even watching right now. But we're gonna have an interesting podcast tonight. What's up? There we go. Maya Rose is in the house. I'll wait for a little bit for some more people to join. And of course, you guys can find me, like I mentioned, at the mysticalspiralstore.com. You also can find free information at themysticalspiral.com. I'm going to be actually adding a whole bunch more to that website in the next couple of days. Um, but you guys can check out my Patreon if you want to join my Patreon, patreon.com/themysticalspiral. And like I said, I have a free information website and I also have a store. You can find my store right here. You guys can see the screen. I put new products up every single day. We got everything from specimens to pendants, copper healing devices, like tensor coils, everything. Some of these that are out of stock were one of a kind, but other ones I can make again. Like this one, the Aura Quartz Royal Cubit device. I have a few more of these Aura Quartz left, and I will make them. This one is sold out, but there's more available. These are really awesome Not only are they energy devices and healing devices for your mind, body, and soul, but they're really badass and using the highest quality products, most ethically sourced products on the planet. We carve our own crystals here at the Mystical Spiral store. We make our own aura quartz. Everything is done in-house by the Mystical Spiral team. Here we go. So you guys can check out. We got all price ranges. My new Spirit Flame Sphere Series pendants right here. These are really dope. You could get gemstones and regular crystals. So, guys, we got the Herkimer diamonds that come here from New York as well. All types of Herkimer diamonds. This is a badass little pendant as well. The strawberry quartz, royal cubit copper tensor. Really cool. And the blue goldstone. Look at that. Those sparkle like a galaxy. I don't know if you guys have ever seen blue goldstone, but check this out. Let me show you guys what it looks like. How it sparkles like a galaxy. See that? Really cool. So you guys can check that out at your convenience. That's at the Mystical Spiral Store.com. So hopefully people will be joining in the chat room. I don't know how many people are watching tonight. We're going to be talking about. You guys have seen the title of tonight's podcast, Clothed with the Sun. People might see that familiar term because of the book of Revelation. So let me pull up first the in the book of Revelation where that's written. All right, so here we go. So this is where that phrase is actually in the book of Revelation. And I used it tonight, and you'll see why, some of the reasons why I used it tonight. Um, I wanted to use the King James. What's this new King James? Just regular King James. Why's it gotta be new King James? So it says, now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And then it talks about a great sign appeared in heaven, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 7 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. His tails drew a third of the stars of heaven and drew them to the earth. Very interesting right there. All right, so obviously this is symbolism and it's describing some cosmic force, most likely a solar force coming down to the planet or some sort of cometary. Could be a comet, could be some sort of solar force clothed with the sun, a woman clothed with the sun. Very interesting. There's a couple of reasons why I picked that for the title of tonight, but they're talking about a war breaking out in heaven here, and Michael and his angels fought with the dragon. And Michael, of course, is the flaming sword of the sun. Remember that. And we got to realize where these solar forces originate from, these stories originate from, and the symbolism that is used, especially in stories where some sort of force is coming down from the sun in many of cases and almost destroying humanity. Now we have, and you guys can find translations of it in several places. You could find it one in, if you guys are into ancient translations of where to find some of these translations, of course, you can find some of the translations of destructions of mankind stories. One out of ancient Egypt. The Society of Biblical Archaeology started when they were found in the later 1800s and started to become translated. They published it in Society of Biblical Archaeology, Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology, Volume 4. It was published in. You also have it published in Records of the Past by Samuel Birch in the late 1800s, right here. But parts were omitted in this part. The fuller version is in the Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology. I only have volume 3 down here. But this is from Records of the Past by Samuel Birch. You guys can get some of the copies of that if you want. You can get the reprints that are a lot cheaper. And the Destruction of Mankind story is, I think, in this one, right? Yep, it's in this one as well. And this is volume 6 of Records of the Past. All right, so now what's interesting is the origins of the destruction of mankind, and this was translated by Edward Neville um, in Samuel Birch's Records of the Past volume, and you could find it in Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology, Part 1, Volume 4, and accompanied by the translation. Now, the inscription is engraved on the four walls of a small chamber that's called the Chamber of the Cow in the tomb of Seti the First. Now, first, let me remind everybody out there, when you see references, now this stems even from Vedic, you see references of a cow. These are solar cows, remind you, right? This has to do with the rays of light from the sun. Anytime you see cow reference, cattle reference, or bull reference, the cow reference is the female or feminine principles and aspects of the solar deity or the sun, right? So certain female qualities, so to say, of the sun coming down to earth. So this inscription that we're talking about that has to do with destruction of mankind, right? Now this is separate from the revelation that I just had, the clothed with the sun. But it's very much related in some ways, right? Welcome, Alexander Mitchell. Glad you made it tonight. And we're going to be talking about. So, guys, if you're just joining us, we're just getting started. We're going to be getting into people that have channeled the light, so to say, people that have communicated with the light and so-called angelic beings and have brought in channeled information that is either how it relates to the Bible in some ways and also other ways. And interesting, Alexander wrote Bringer of the Dawn. That was actually one of my solo project that I did about 15 or 20 years ago. It was called Bringers of the Dawn, right? And you could find probably that still on, I don't know if MySpace still exists, but that was when I left the band that I was working and traveling and playing shows with. I started my own solo project. and that was the name. But that name actually also was used by Barbara Marcinek, who channeled, the Pleiadians. There's a few things that we're going to get into tonight. Some books that you guys can get out there if you want to do for research. Now, I would not take these channelings serious, all of them. Like, don't start changing your life concerning the information, and you have to use discernment. And we'll get into that because many of the people that even were doing some of these channelings in some cases didn't fare well from it. I know people are familiar with probably the raw lull of one channelings, right? The raw material, these ones. Well, people what they fail to bring up, I forget what the guy's name. It was Carla Ruckert that was doing the channeling, but the guy who was asking the questions, he unalived himself um after book two, right? I think it was at first he was in a psychiatric institution for a while, and then yeah, I think he unalived himself, so to say. Welcome, Alexander. You guys can support me right here in the super chat. You guys can support me at PayPal at the Mystical Spiral at moontribe712 at hotmail.com on PayPal. You guys can also go to the Mystical Spiral store to support me. And welcome Isaac in the chat room, the Peaceful Penguin, Alexander J. Mitchell, Maya Rose, my wifey Magic, Micah, Maya Rose, everybody out there. Thank you. Make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe as well. But we're going to get into people that were channeling and putting themselves even in Faraday cages or channeling the light. You have, but I'm going to specifically concentrate on ones that were in the later 1800s tonight. So we mentioned the Bringers of the Dawn. You guys can check out Barbara Marcinek. We got the classics here. I had these since the 90s, Bringers of the Dawn and the Earth book, right? These ones are old ones, and there's also the Family of Light. That's the three that I have of Barbara Marcinek. You also can get this was hard. This was expensive when it originally came out. The Nine by Stuart Holroyd, originally by Corgi Press. Uh, this is the full briefings from the landing on planet Earth by Corgi Press. Stuart Holroyd. This was about Phyllis Schlellner and Dr. Polharich and Sir John Whitmore, who were channeling, and they were traveling actually in different spots all over the world and communicating with the Council of Nine, right? So this is another one that you guys can check out to get into that. But then in the 1800s, we had a few people, and of course, there's books like the Urantia books, which, in my opinion, was channeled by Edgar Casey, and I've done shows about that. And you guys can even go all the way back to the Sibylline oracles, where you guys can get prophesized channelings and all sorts of communication, right? Well, we're going to get into all that tonight as well. Oh, shout out to Isaac. Keep shining, brother. 1010. Wow. It's 707 right now here, too. 7-7, right at 707. Beautiful. Let's keep the ball rolling. But in the later 1800s, right, we had some channelings that we're going to get into tonight. After I get into this destruction of mankind, we're going to get into some of the channelings in the later 1800s. One of them was by Anna Kingsford. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that name. And her channelings was called Clothed with the Sun. Right? And this was in the later 1800s, later 1880s. Very interesting. And you guys, these are her name was Anna Kingsford, and she lived from 1846 to 1888. And also a guy named Edward Maitland or Maitland. He also was involved with it as well. And of course, The other monster one that I got to bring up, and we're going to be talking about this. Yeah, this is clothed with the sun, right? Right. What's up, Zeralath? I got to make my buddy Alexander part of the crew too. Alexander, he's a good buddy as well. Actually, I can't even. It won't let me make you a for some reason. Uh, yeah, shout out to my wifey for making the background as well. She made the background. I know the middle part's covered up by books, but it's got like a pharaoh type dude behind there as well. But I love the Space Water Podcast one. And then you got the different symbols over here. I move my chair. The cool stuff going on back there. Check out you guys see the Close Encounters of the Third Kind pin back there, right here in the corner right here. Yeah. So, we'll get into the channeling tonight, but also my favorite. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of OASP, but John McBrow was in 1881, he was a dentist in New York City. Now, of course, most dentists are sadists, in my opinion. They like a lot of the people, they like to watch people in pain, I tell you. And a lot of the people that become dentists were like bullies and stuff in life, I find out. But that's beyond the point. That's just I'm just playing around. But there was John McBrow, right? He was a dentist living in New York City in the 1880s, and a pillar of light came down into his room and started uh like moving his hands, I guess, do you say, to like automatic writing. Now I can relate to this, right? I've been having forms of this happening through my whole life, right? Where I can literally go like this on the page in this way, and different characters will form, different things will form, and I'm not even looking at what's going on. I've done it throughout my whole life. It's really incredible. You can get information this way as well, but it's very dangerous. If you're not a grounded individual, you can actually pull in some dark things, right? Well, this guy, John McBrow, in 1880s had a pillar of light come to him, and for over a year's time he channeled this monster work called OASP. Now, this is the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors for 24,000 years. Whoa, look at the friggin' all of a sudden it's like illuminating and pulsating. Look at that. What the hell's going on? That was interesting. So, um, where he got the name from is very interesting. I think it tells you in here. Now, what's amazing about this book, and we're going to get into it later on in the show, right? We're going to get into it later on in the show. What's amazing about this book is that there's real scientific truths revealed in there. In this book from 1881 is when he channeled it. He describes both through drawing and description the Van Allen belts before we knew they existed. Right? He doesn't call them Van Allen belts, of course, but he describes image things about the cosmos that we didn't know previous at that time. So the book even is not it's not 100% correct. There's certain things probably in there that are wrong, of course. And they even say at the beginning that it's not 100%, right? It's not the alpha and the omega or whatever it was saying. But there's some interesting things in there. And of course, it depends on the person's psyche and I think their education maybe, and their their verbal limitations and things like that, had their way of expressing what's being pulled in. But apparently this being of light was guiding his hand to channel this huge book. I mean, this is not something most channelings, like, I have channelings from like the 1980s by certain people, and from the 90s, some from the 2000s, and they're like 100 pages usually. Like, you can find ones like what's I mean, I've done it for research. I've read pretty much everyone's channelings out there that's been published. And the OASP, when they send you the OASP book, they send it to you in this, you know, big old big crazy box. And I'm not sure if you guys ever even heard of it before. But what was I gonna say about I forget what the other people's names are, but you've had a lot of other people that have published like channelings, and they go like 100 pages. Um oh, you have Jane Roberts, right? She was another one. Where's Jane Roberts? Shit. So this is the Seth material, right? I forgot about her for a minute. Jane Roberts, she was another channeler. And of course, she first started communicating with so-called Seth through a Ouija board, right? Which is not recommended. Definitely not. And I think from there she like moved on, but yeah, she was like using a Ouija board, I think, originally to communicate with the spirit that she called Seth, right? And the Seth material. You can get the book one is the early sessions of the Seth material, sessions one for 42, and then there's another book two. Um, I have the book two as well, but I don't think I went beyond that. If there is more, same thing with the Law of One. I got the first. I know there's at least three books, but I have the first two books here, and I think it was the guy after the second book is when he passed away. Don Elkins, that was his name, Don Elkins. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he went mad from those channelings. Now, Carla Ruckert was the one that was actually doing the channeling. She was the one that was going to sleep, similar to Edgar Casey, but I don't think she was remembering what was being channeled either. But in my opinion, Edgar Casey channeled the Urantia books. I've talked to that about that before. You had Dr. William Sadler, I think his name was, that published the Urantia papers. And Dr. Sadler was a psychiatrist from Chicago. And not only was he a psychiatrist from Chicago, but he was into psychical research, right? Researching psychic telepathy, ESP, psionic, you know, things like this, the paranormal, ESP, stuff like that, right? So Edgar Casey did a fair in Chicago right at the peak of Dr. Sadler's work, right? Dr. Sadler was at that fair and no doubt probably made contact with Edgar Casey at that time. Now, we have proof in Edgar Casey's records, and I have them here. Actually, it's upstairs on my bookshelves upstairs. There's a couple that actually published a book about this. And I found the book from my own findings. I came to it from my own way. Um, Edgar Casey was making periodic visits to a doctor in Chicago. He was seeing, it doesn't specify what psychiatrist he was seeing, but it was a doctor. Most likely it was a psychiatrist. Now, it wasn't really talked about back then to go to a psychiatrist because people were crazy back then. They called them shrinks, right? They called them like, people, it was very taboo to see a psychiatrist. So I think Edgar Casey was seeing this specific psychiatrist because he was interested in psychic activity and telepathy and all of this stuff, right? And he was making periodic visits to Chicago over the years. Now, if there's only two people in the room, like if Edgar Casey is seeing this doctor And Edgar Casey is laying down, going to sleep in front of this doctor. This doctor could have pumped Edgar Casey for all types of information. Remember, the man goes to sleep. He has no clue what's transpiring while he's sleeping. It has to be recorded. Now, if he has a psychiatrist, and throughout Edgar Casey's channelings, if you research it, there's angelic beings that arise that uh, Azrael, I think one of the names was, oh, I forget the names now, but there's different beings that have arisen that they've turned away because he had certain rules, right? But if Dr. William Sadler was pumping these angelic beings or guiding the session with Edgar Casey, there's no telling what kind of information he was pulling in from Edgar Casey during those sessions. And what a coincidence that he waited until Edgar Casey died. And then almost immediately after Edgar Casey dies, the Urantia papers are published, right? So that's not a coincidence. And a lot of the Urantia papers terminology is very similar to Edgar Casey's terminology. Very interesting. The Lost Boys, for sure. For sure, The Lost Boys. Yeah, but this is very good read. If you guys want to get OASP, I think you can even get it for like under $50 for this huge book. And there's all sorts of drawings and plates in there. Interesting stuff in here. That's the book of the Ark of Bon. The book of the Ark of Bon. And then check out check out these map like drawings and stuff that unfold in here. Intense stuff in here. And like I said, you have the Van Allen belts and everything like described in here. Just insane. Insane. The roadway of the solar phalanx, phalanx, the lines of different currents and transverse currents, and the highest Ethereal light. I mean, some of the drawings in here are just intense too. Really cool stuff going on in here. The list of plates. Yeah, this was originally copyrighted in 1882 and it was channeled during 1881. And it talks about, it has a whole bunch of different portraits in here and plates. So OASP, let me get the name meaning. Yeah, the title of the book, OASP, it's OAHSPE, which literally means sky, earth, and spirit. So O for sky, AH for earth, and SPE for spirit. And they say it was a product of automatic writing, which occurred through the hands of a medium, Dr. John Newbrow, over the course of 1 year, 1881, in New York City. It was written by an overshadowing of angelic beings who are not a separate order in creation, but who are actually our elder brothers and sisters. Once mortal like us, but now high raised in wisdom through countless years of growth and experience. They state that OASP is not a perfect book, nor is it the alpha and omega of knowledge. Rather, it is like a traveler's guide to greater spiritual growth and understanding. Its purpose is to give us an insight while yet in mortality of what the world of spirit is really like and what the general history of the world has been. As a result, it gives us greater clarity regarding our true purpose and destiny as the immortal, eventually angelic souls that we are. Very interesting. Now, This appeared as automatic writing rather just than in a burst of light already completed on a tablet of. See, that's another thing. So I forgot to mention the Book of Mormon by Joseph Smith. Do I have it here? Oh, it's upstairs. I could get it if you guys want me to get it. But he also has met this angelic being Moroni. Now, look at the size and the depth of this book compared to the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is like this, right? And this is not just a big writing. I mean, this is bigger than our own Bible. This is bigger than the Holy Bible, right? And this literally says here the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors, a sacred history of the dominions of the higher and lower heavens on the earth for the past 24,000 years. Being from the submersion of the continent of Pan in the Pacific Ocean, commonly called the flood or deluge, to the Cosmin era. Also, a brief history of the preceding 55,000 years. Together with the synopsis of the cosmogony of the universe, the creation of planets, the creation of man, the unseen worlds, the labor and glory of gods and goddesses in the Etherian heavens. With the new commandments of Jehovah to man of the present day, with revelations from the second resurrection formed in words in the 33rd year of the Cosmin era. This is the Elohist edition. Now, I don't know if you guys, maybe look that way. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Elohistic and the Jehovistic accounts. Now, in the book of Genesis, people don't realize there are two accounts of the origin of man, right? Now, for as long as people have been talking about the Bible, they've been distinguished as two different accounts, the Elohistic and the Jehovistic accounts, right? The Elohistic is like from the Elohim, right? The Elohistic or Elohistic, right? This is the earliest one, of course, right? It's in uh it talks about the first appearance of man on the planet, or as some people put it, a re-inhabitation and the formation of the present cosmos, right? Now, the Jehovistic is deals with the origins of just one race, right? The Adamic or Caucasian race. Now, don't think this means just white, right? We're talking about the Caucasian race. It's different than the white type. They're sometimes called the white race, but although there's white ones among them, there's some of them that they're described as being blacker than the darkest Negro in the ancient writings. That's how they write it. They literally say that they're black as that of the darkest Negro, right? That's how they write it in the ancient writings. So uh they're right, and we're talking about Aryan Hindus that are even darker than some of the true African Americans. That's how they're saying it, right? Even the ones of the black Jews, right? I'm trying to read the chat room. Peaceful Penguin is writing in there. Yeah, I think I've seen Interstellar. I'm not sure. But so you have these two accounts, right? And this is where you get also the giant, in the book of Genesis, where we have the accounts of the giants, the giant races, right? And in the Bible, they indicate that the Anakim descended from these Nephilim, right? And not just the Anakim, you have the Rephaim, you have the Amalekites, right? You have the Horites, You have the Zamzumum, right? You have the, Amalek in the book of Numbers. He was the first of the nations, right? Right. He was the one, and then it was the Horites, and then the Edomites, and they were all occupying Mount Seir, right? I just posted it on my Patreon the other day. You guys can check that out. One of the biblical locations is Mount Seir. They had these rock dwellings in Mount Seir, right? Um, and in Petra, of course, right? Arabia. Petra is another one. It's good to see you as well, Claudette, right? Yep, Sky, Earth, Spirit, OASP. If you guys are just tuning in, I highly recommend you check out the whole show and go back a little bit because we're just getting started actually into the main bit. But I described some of the channelings from the 18 and now yes, the 1880s. Very interesting that those channelings came right as 1880 hit, because in 1879 we had a shift that's talked about even by Rudolf Steiner, right? You guys can get some of Rudolf Steiner's books. One of them I highly recommend is the Archangel Michael book by Rudolf Steiner, right? So you guys can go there, where he talks about the shift that happened in 1879, right? Where you have the gods of Mammon versus Archangel Michael, right? We come into the age of Archangel Michael in 1879, in November of 1879. And god of Mammon being the god of materialism, the god of money, the Asura. This is the Asura Deva war, right? But you have different devas. You have Archangel Michael as being the flaming sword of the sun, right? You have different angels, different demons, depending on what side you're on. Just like if you're an Asura, Deva can mean devil or it can mean divine if you're a Deva, right? The same thing with different people that are called heretics. They're only heretics if you're not on their side. If you're on their side, they're gods. Right? Akhenaten, for example. If you were part of his crew, he wasn't a heretic. He was a living god, right? A pharaoh. He was like the vicar of Christ, sort of like a pope, right? Or even like a god himself. Yeah, Rudolf Steiner. Yeah, I definitely have read the Zohar. I have like huge volumes of it upstairs. Uh, I forget the it's by a university, the one I have. It's a very expensive editions I have. Now, they say you're not even supposed to read the Zohar and study it till you're at least 40 years old. I owned them before I was 40, but I didn't really start going, and I read a little bit of them before I was 40, of course. I've had them since I was in my 20s, but you're not supposed to really focus on them and start studying them and working them if you're going to be into the Kabbalah until you're at least 40, because it could literally drive you mad and insane, right? And it is solar channelings. He is solar channeling that book, right? That book of splendor, right? That book of illumination. So the Zohar is another example of channelings, of course. And he was saying that it was through Rabbi Simon Yohai, right? Who was an older sage who was actually a protege of Rabbi Akiva. Akiva was skinned alive with a blunt instrument by the Romans in the first century AD. So Rabbi Yohai, who was mentored by Rabbi Akiva, and these are some of the most famous rabbis of all time. Rabbi Rabbi Simon Yochai, right? So the story that goes with him is very interesting. So apparently, when when uh, when his mentor Rabbi Akiva was skinned alive by the Romans, Rabbi Yohai and his son went into hiding because they were next to get their unalived. So he went into a cave and hid in hiding for many years. I think either 7 years or 13 years or something like that, some magical number. Uh, so the story goes that they only had one pair of clothes. So every day they would get naked and bury themselves neck deep in this cave in the sand with just the Torah in front of them, just buried neck deep, him and his son, naked. And, and they would save their clothes. And each day he would have one page of the Torah out and he would just study that one page each day. And this went on for years like this. And they said by the time that they gave word to him in the cave that the emperor had died, the Roman emperor had died, and that he was no longer under the chopping block, so to say, as when he finally left the cave, I think it was after like 13 years or maybe 7 years, he had like supernatural sight that they talk about, right? Like supernatural sight. And as he left the cave, and started walking to civilization towards the Jewish village, he came upon Jewish farmers and he sees them outside tending to their crops, and he's sort of walking like with a very ego-like talking as well, almost like a supernatural being in a way, thinking he's even better than the way they describe this encounter, that he walks upon the Jewish family, he sees them attending to their crops, and he's saying to them, "Why are you outside tending to these crops when you should be inside looking at your Torah or whatever?" Right? And then apparently he had like some sort of fresh waterfall that was right next to the cave, and some harib tree or something outside of the cave where him and his son lived on. So apparently they were able to survive in that cave. But so he walks upon these Jewish farmers and he's like, "Why are you outside tending to the crops when you should be inside looking at the Torah?" And he said it to them with sort of anger and spite, like in a way, like. And they said as he looked at the crops, he was lighting the crops on fire with his eyes, like he had some sort of supernatural sight. And I don't know if this is a true story or if it's, of course, embellished or whatever, but this is part of the Jewish folklore that goes along with this guy, Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai. And he was the one that supposedly channeled. Now, he was long dead when the book of the Zohar was actually written by Moses de Leon, I think the guy's name was. He's like a Spanish Kabbalistic Jew. Um, uh, Now it was the medieval times, Middle Ages or whatever times that this guy published the Zohar, but he said it was through channeling this sage, basically, that it was written by this sage. So it's highly debated on the origins of the Zohar. There's no way of telling how he got this information, but most likely it was channeled in a very similar way that other people have channeled. Yeah, I like Steiner as well. What's up, Johnny? What's up, Johnny? Nice to have you guys here. It's good to see you, Johnny. Good to see you, Peaceful Penguin and Isaac and Alexander. Everybody out there, I give you guys shout outs before. Zeralath, Maya Rose, Magic Micah. Who else is out there? Did I say? Thank you so much to Isaac for your donation. I really appreciate that, guys. It helps out so much. Even if you guys donated like $1.99 every once in a while or just here and there, it helps keep my websites. I have free information websites that I pay for all myself. I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any people that pay for ads, or you know uh I sponsor myself, my own store. So all my websites I pay for out of my own pocket. I don't have any investors or anything like this. So it really helps a lot if you guys can support and keep the Space Water podcast alive and free here on YouTube. I also, if I'm gonna bring a guest on, I always make sure that it's one of the world's most experts in their field. I don't just have a guest on just because he's popular or because he asked to come on my show. Usually, if I have a guest on, it's because I have a long time correspondence and friendship with the person. That's pretty much the only way I'll have a guest on. I used to back in the day when I had a radio show have just guests on for, just to have a guest on, but I stopped that a long time ago. A long time ago. Unless I'm getting paid like money to do w- it's because it's really not about the money. But if I was getting paid like a well-paid job to interview people every night, that's a different story. But this I'm just doing for a passion. Last year I made about $400 for the year on YouTube. So I ain't doing this for the money. I'll tell you that. This is for a passion. That's why. So I'm doing it for you guys. Oh, Alexander J. Mitchell. Thank you so much, bro. $25 or 25 lira. Oh, we got Wraith Strongo. $5, $25, $5. Woo! Here we go, everybody. Let's keep the ball rolling. Space, water, and TIE fights. This has been a deep lecture. Thanks. We're just getting started, bro. We are just getting started. Alexander J. Mitchell with his 25 lira says, Mira, hi, Pleiadian Earth Council of Endara, first Rieva, Pleiades Collective Ambassador Council. Whoa. Darkness always gives way to the dawn. Love that. Riley Rage, Rod don't play games. That's right, brother. It's the dawn of a new day. Isaac, 25 rainbow codes. Beautiful. Now, I talked about before, and we're gonna get deeper into some things tonight, but I talked about, guys, before the destruction of mankind tablet. I don't want to go off of that because that's what we were getting into, right? So this is an inscription that's engraved on the four walls of a small chamber of Seti the First. Now, Seti the First is very interesting. I have some papyrus from Seti the First. This is this is from the Cairo Museum. And if you guys, I actually got this from an old boss of mine that they actually a rich family too. They own Robeson Oil in Westchester County, New York. They're the Singer family. And Saul Singer and his wife, who originally owned the company, they're an oil company. They had bought my dad's little home company that he had in the 90s and 80s. They had bought our company out, and then me and my dad went to go work for them for a while. And I was a dispatcher for them. And they're an old Jewish family, old Jewish couple. And then when they got too old, they gave their son the company to their sons. And I don't really like how their sons were running the company, but the original couple, Saul and his wife, Mrs. Singer, were really nice old couple, good people, right? And the mother knew that I was into ancient Egypt, and I'm talking about I was in my early 20s at the time when and she had given me years before I ever worked for her, she had given me another one from when she went to Egypt because, my dad had been in the oil business since, before I was even born. So since I'm a young kid, I knew all these people and I would come around. And she had given it before I was even just me being at the office one day, and around, she had given me one other one. And then I was working for her a few years later, and she gave me some of these papyrus that she got. They're replicas that were made from the Cairo Museum on real papyrus. The one I have is one of my favorite of Akhenaten, right? And these come with on the back of this, there's a certificate of authenticity or whatever. And then this is of Seti the First with Hathor and a priest of Osiris. And for 20 years, I was staring at these papyruses in my rooms. on various different places I've lived in my life. And I even have a big tapestry of the papyrus one. Really big one on one side of my walls in here in my office. And various people that I've become friends with over the years have also had a connection to either Seti the First or the later 18th dynasty and Akhenaten's family, which I myself have a strong connection to as well. Well, Seti the First is where you find. It's very interesting how those specific papyruses that this lady gives me out of nowhere too. She gives me the Akhenaten one and the Seti the First one. She gave me two of them from Seti the First. The other one isn't as 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 bright as that one. The other one I have is this one of Seti the First. And you got Seti the First is the dark guy in the middle, and then you have Hathor and the priest of Osiris, right? So I'll hang that up later. So Seti the First wall is where you find this. Now let me remind you guys. Now you find this in the Seti the First chamber of the Temple of the Cow, right? The Temple of the Cow, or in the tomb of Seti the First. Remember, when you have cow references, whether you're talking about ancient Vedic or ancient Egyptian, cows or cattle mean the rays of light from the sun or the intelligence of the sun or solar references, right? It has to either to do with the sun itself, or usually it has to do with the rays of light coming from the sun, which means the intelligence, the information that the sun is sending, whether it's through a storm or it's through the warm light that it's evolving and sustaining and creating life with, right? But it's the information that's within the light of the sun. So you have a temple that has to do with information of the sun. When you have it as a cow, if it was the temple of the Apis bull, the solar bull, it would have been the male forces of the sun. But you have the temple of the cow, so we have the female forces of the sun, right? Now, very interesting here. And the destruction of mankind is a story where Ra, who is the sun, is summoning the eye of Ra in the form of a solar storm, a solar force called the Eye of Ra in the form of Sekhet or Hathor or Isis in the form of Sekhet, which is a solar force clothed in her red wings, very similar to the clothed in the sun reference in Revelation 12 on to 13, right? A dragon clothed in red wings, right? The solar, you have a fierce lioness clothed in red coming from the sky, right? With Sekhet, very similar, right? So this inscription is engraved on the four walls of that small chamber called the Cow Chamber in the tomb of Seti the First, and it was published, like I said, for the very first time in the first part of the fourth volume of the Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology. You can also find it in Records of the Past, Volume 6. You can also find it in Wallace Budge, Wallace Budge's Legends. Uh, E.A. Wallace Budge was another ancient Egyptian Egyptologist, and you can find it in there as well. And in fact, maybe we'll use that volume because that volume has the actual hieroglyphics. So this is the hieroglyphics on one side of the page, and then the translation on the other side in Wallace Budge version. So we can get into that in a minute as well to see the actual translation. But if I'm right now using the Records of the Past, Volume 6. This was published in the 1870s. This is English translations of the Assyrian and Egyptian monuments. This was by Dr. Samuel Birch, this volume. And like I said, this is volume 6 of the Records of the Past English translations, right? All from the society. And these are the reasons why I'm using these is because these are the very first translations of these ancient writings after where they were first rediscovered after all these years. These were the very first, and these were the most learned people on the planet at that time. And at that time, there was no Google. It was boots, leather on the ground, right? Your boots to the ground type research. And these guys were the most learned people at the time. I'm not saying their translations are 100% correct, but they give you a starting point. And what we need now is also, the scholarly version is not going to find the real truth. They're going to give you the basis of what they're, but if you want the adept version, you need a spiritual initiate or an adept to pull that out. And that's where people like me come in because we have that embedded in us, right? Oh, Isaac, you got to go. Thank you for stopping by and thank you for your lovely donation, brother. Wait till you see the package I just sent you. Um, I have the tracking number for you already. I just shipped it out this morning for the Labradorite. I sent you an awesome gift, brother. Awesome gift. I also have the little mini Labradorite skulls if you're interested. I'll give it to you for like $10 if you want one. Um, they're really, really high quality too, as well. I sent you some pictures, so check those out. But yeah, so the destruction of mankind talks about a solar force coming to the earth, and it's being mistranslated, right? It's being mixed translated, but it's it's talking about, in my opinion, right? It's talking about the magnetotail and how the magnetotail swallows the sun, rays of light from the sun. It literally pulls in what comes out as auroras, right? So it's talking about a solar storm hitting our planet. But the reason why it's coming to our planet is because people are out of balance with the sun. The way they did translate it in the story is that the people of Earth are talking badly against Ra, right? And Ra punishes them by summoning the Eye of Ra in the form of Sekhet, a storm, and that the storm starts destroying all of mankind in a roaring force, rolling over humanity, ripping heads off of humanity and drinking their blood, literally talking about things like that. And then at nighttime, they have to feed her this like cosmic beer that they describe, right? It's not a beer. It's the cosmic waters that she's pulling in the magnetotail, which is like a lioness sleeping, right? And when she lays down and stretches out on the night side, as the magnetotail does, it goes to sleep. The storm stopped. And this is how the storm stops, right? And it's very interesting event that's coming. Now, I was shown over the years, I've been given visions of chastisements coming to this planet. I was given one in 2002 while I was in Long Beach, and I had a vision while I had this experience in the park that I've mentioned before on my shows. And I saw a chastisement coming to this planet, a PTSD type vision that I was given. And I also was shown right before we had the health crisis and all the stuff that happened over the last few years, I was shown something coming our way, right? And it has to do with a solar event. Now we're headed towards an ice age, in my opinion. Clothed with the sun is a great name because right now, even our magnetic north is shifting towards Russia. Why do you think this is happening? Because Russia is a specific force on our planet that's doing damage, right? First, our magnetic north went into a super volcano. Now it's going right, accelerating right towards Russia, right? And all of these prophecies that had to do with Russia starting World War III, Russia starting the end times, and 3 days of darkness coming down in the prophecy. I do believe a solar force is going to hit us, and the first place it's going to come is where magnetic north is. This is the first, and the people that are going to get the worst of it, right? And it's coming. And in my opinion, it's coming in June of 2025. And you got to take this for entertainment here on YouTube, of course, right? This is just for entertainment for these podcasts. But I was given signs for many, many years now, and it's culminating. And I do believe in June of 2025, we will have a solar event that is going to trigger an ice age, the beginning of an ice age. And we've had various things that happen that are changing the way the sun is. People don't realize the significance of a comet even going into the sun, which we recently just had, right? Comet Atlas. We're going to get into that as well, right? Now, people have been getting signs through channelings of chat. This is why do you guys think I have all of these books of channelings? I don't recommend people channel. You should never need a middleman, right? So you should never let something embody you. That doesn't mean it's bad to communicate with the cosmos and the light. There's two different ways. I don't believe somebody should be going unconscious and letting something step in. You do not need a middleman like that. That is very dangerous. But at the same time, it's very healthy for you to be communicating with the light if you're a grounded individual, right? But sometimes people are not prepared for what they get, right? Now, there's all sorts of people all over that have communicated with other species besides human. Right? I've mentioned John Lilly in the past, how he used to communicate with dolphin intelligences, right? You guys can get some of his books that I have, right? And you have all sorts of intelligence right on this planet that is higher case. I've talked about people, all these different channelings. I mean, the 9 channelings by Phyllis Schlemmer and Sir John Whitmore and Dr. Polharich, that was published by Stuart Holroyd. Those channelings, in my opinion, even though at the time in the 90s when I got the book, I spent like $100 to get the book. I was into it. Like it was a letdown, right? Definitely was a letdown. There was no great cosmic information in that book. It was pretty basic stuff. Um, but I do believe that we're headed towards a solar changing event. You guys, I don't know if you guys saw a Comet Atlas. Hold on, let me pull this up. Let me just get my pull it up before I share screen for you guys. The Zulu Mitchell. I'm so glad you're here tonight, Alexander. John Jacob Ingelheimer Schmidt. All right, so how was I doing here? Oh, the comet. The comet. The comet. Let me see if I still have this shiznit. Yeah. All right, let me share screen for you guys. So this is when Comet Atlas was swallowed by the sun. This was on it was in November, right? October or November recently. It was recently. It was like a couple of weeks ago. What the hell was the date? Yeah, flight successful. Now let me show you guys. They actually think this is just a coincidence where you have two massive coronal mass ejections, the Pasha of Hindu, the Ankh of Egyptian. exactly on the sides. All right, let me show you. So here's the comet, lower bottom of the screen right here. Let me show you first of all. All right, here it comes. Right here's the comet. Boom, goes in. Boom, then boom, boom. Let me show you again. Comet's going to come on the lower right hand side of the screen right here. And then, as soon as the comet enters into the sun and disappears, you see a massive coronal burst come out. Right. So the comet enters here. Then, right in line with that, right here is where you have the coronal burst on this side. And then on the opposite side of this, right here, you have another massive coronal mass ejection. Now, how can that be a coincidence? It goes right in timing with the comet. Let me show you. Here it comes, goes in, boom, comes out the other side, and boom, out the other side. Both the head and the tail of the comet. I mean, yes, yes, Alexander. Look, comet goes in right here, boom, comes out, and then boom, out the other side. How can that be a coincidence? Now, this has happened before. This has been witnessed before. People have seen this before during uh comets going into where it was a coincidence that we had a comet get swallowed by the sun and at the same time a coronal mass ejection. How can that be a coincidence? Because they don't want to tell you that incoming plasmas and incoming objects are affecting the sun's storms and what transpires with the sun, right? They don't want to admit this. But, I don't know if you guys remember comet Kohoatek, right? We had something similar to this transpire in you have Robert Anton Wilson, right? He was this started his own little uh he had his own little theories on some of these things that was going on. Now, on July 23rd, 1973, this guy Wilson awoke, as he said, with an urgent message from the dreamland, and he scribbled in his diary a few words that had to do with the Sirius, right? The star Sirius. Now, this was before Robert Temple's Serious Mystery was written. He didn't know why it was important, but after he did a little bit of research, he started to realize that people, whether it was Aleister Crowley and other people, ancient Egyptian, they all had some sort of connection with Sirius. Now, he also found that the very day, July 23rd, in Egyptian tradition, was the day that Earth and Sirius had a powerful alignment, right? Also, it was like 3 years later, I think, that Wilson discovered a Robert Temple Serious Mystery or something like that, and where it was written about all the serious connections with all these cultures. Now, in July 1973, right as this happened, when Wilson had this first experience that he interpreted as a contact from Sirius, right? These channelings. His friend at the time, that you guys might know this name, Dr. Timothy Leary, who was in prison right at this time, right? Uh, he formed this four-person telepathy team in an attempt to contact alien intelligences elsewhere in the galaxy. And this is exactly how it's written. There's a book published in 1979 that I have titled Alien Intelligence by Stuart Holroyd, right here, that talks about this. Very similar to the comet here. Now, this was a four-person telepathy team that were trying to contact these alien intelligences. Now, the experiment had compromised you have Timothy Leary, who's in prison, right? You have all of this stuff going on. I mean, pretty incredible the different lives people were living while each person was on this team. But they talked about how there was these, basically they were doing these experiments where they were periods of discussions and meditations, and they were getting some sort of messages from extraterrestrial intelligences that they thought. Um, and they thought that they were capable of communicating with and returning to the galactic network, right? And they also were given a sign in this message that had to do with a comet, right? And they said that they're sending a comet to our solar system as a sign that the time has come to look to the stars, right? And a few months later, it was Comet Kohoutek, as predicted in the transmissions, arrived in the solar system and sped inward towards the sun. And astronomers were watching it and everything, and then it basically fizzled out or disappeared into the sun, right? So I found that very interesting. Now, we recently had that same thing going on. We had telepathic people uh, talking about this comet and how it was going into the sun. And then we had the sun just disappear into the comet, disappear into the sun. Now, this is very significant. I realized, I don't know if it was worldwide, but all of a sudden we had a heat wave come to us in the middle of November after this happened. Very interesting. Right. We had it in New York for a few days afterwards. Like 3 days after it happened. And it would take about 3 days for the effects of a solar storm to reach Earth, right? So, uh, we have all of these different solar activities taking place that's affecting our planet. And right now we have magnetic north, like I said, shifting towards Siberia and Russia. And you guys are going to see that we have an ice age coming our way unless we change the vibration of our planet. And there's been specific spots on our planet that have completely drastically changed because of solar events with ice age that followed. We even have in the Hudson Valley of New York, where I live here, the basalt cliffs on the Palisades. We have these basalt events that transpired all over the planet. You have some in India. You have all over the planet. You have these basalt events that are triggered from volcanism and magma events from solar lightning, solar discharge impacts that happen on the planet. This is what split Pangea. When our continents were all together, we had a solar event, a solar discharge impact that literally created the Atlantic Ocean. It split the continents. And you have basalt cliffs right here in the Hudson Valley, New York, on the Palisades cliffs here. And supposedly there existed an ancient Norse civilization called Norumbega. It was maybe you can call it Tartaria, Tartarian, a Tartarian colony, but it was called Norumbega, and supposedly it existed a long time ago on the Palisades Cliffs. From where I live, from the Haverstraw Bay, you can actually see the basalt cliffs, the Palisade Cliffs perfectly. I'll put pictures up on my Patreon tonight. Um, well, I could pull them up right here for you guys. The ones in the Palisades. Hold on, I'll show you guys. I'll just type it in. So check these out. These are the basalt cliffs right outside New York City, this is right where I live. These are the basalt cliffs in Palisades, New York, and there's even man-made structures like in Peru where the stones fit together in them as well on these basalt cliffs. These are some of the basalt cliffs in the Palisades. right? And you can find in the Deccan Traps in India as well. This was all formed from volcanism. This is the area that I live in. This is actually where you can see it from right near where I live. There you can see the George Washington Bridge. These are the basalt cliffs. Look at that. Insane. Look at that. That's from 1898. Can you guys see what I was showing you? Oh no, I wasn't sharing screen. Oh, I wasn't sharing screen. Hold on, let me show you guys. Let me go back. Shit. So here you guys go. These are the basalt cliffs in Palisades, New York, right near me. See, this is the George Washington Bridge, and you guys, these are the Palisades cliffs. Look at that. These are the basalt cliffs. It's a flat top as well, where supposedly once existed the ancient lost city of Norumbega. Look at these basalt cliffs. There you go, from 1898. Wraith, give me your questions, brother. Give me your questions. Yeah, Magic Micah or Mika in the chat room. That's my wifey. Wraith, that's my wife in there. So now you guys can meet. Now you know. She's the mother of my child too. Yeah, these are the basalt cliffs that you can see right from the Haverstraw Bay as well. You could go right to a trail that we have in Haverstraw to hike to see the cliffs. Yep, this is about a 10-minute drive from my house. And I'm right on the Hudson River. See, also visible from Haverstraw, New York. This is right where I am, right on the Haverstraw. So Tartaria, yeah, it's an interesting subject, right? Not many answers we can give on it, but interesting subject. Then again, when you talk about channelings, we have the Book of Mormon, you have the OASP book that I talked about. Um, and they both talk about prophecies, signs, and miraculous events that are going to happen and that happened with our creation, you know. And when you have, all of a sudden a wave of this knowledge coming in, you got to think about where it's coming from, and how it was first activated and where it's first being erected, right? So it seems that as we first started to rediscover these ancient tablets and ancient writings, as when a new age started to come in as well, and the knowledge just started to reawake, and there's got to be um, an unseen force that's guiding this to transpire as well, right? So you also have Alice Bailey, right? I've talked about many times. She was another one who was channeling the Tibetan. You guys can see her. Guys, I got a couple of books by the Lucis Trust. They all have these little blue books, these little blue books by the Lucis Trust, the Alice Bailey books. They used to be called the Lucifer Trust. Now it's called the Lucis Trust, Alice Bailey books. And, she talks about the solar logos and the progression of souls, right? The solar logos. I think a lot of different people are describing in their own way, communicating with the sentient streams of light, the sentient streams of plasma. And sometimes the light appears to you telepathically. Is that a word? Telepathically in various ways. So I had in several times to me a Native American uh young woman come to me in various times throughout telepathically throughout my life, right? And in Alice Bailey's case, she had the Tibetan that she was channeling, right? And then you have, of course, you guys can get the Mahatma letters, right? With you guys can get this Mahatma letters with all the different channelings that were happening with Kuthumi, right? Kuthumi and the different ascended masters with Blavatsky and her friends and all of them. But you know, all of these different channelings that are coming in, sometimes the light will come to you in different ways, and sometimes the light will speak to you in different ways according to your own psyche and according to your own cosmic journey, I think. And it doesn't mean all of the information that you're getting is 100% correct, right? Um, and it doesn't mean that everything that the person's saying is bullshit either, right? But I would say people need to use discernment. And if you're sometimes out there begging for things to happen for you, right? Praying for, oh, I need money, I need this, calling out to the stars, calling out to spiritually for this to happen. Sometimes things can get attracted to you and will lie to you for you to get what you want, but it's not a force that you should be entertaining, right? Sometimes it's trickster entities. It's materialistic asura, demonic demonic forces, if you want to say. I hate the word to use demon, but that Suruk energy is what's ruling our world, our environment, right? It's very easily to fall into the trap. And once money and glamour and glitz your priority, you're pretty much effed, right? You're pretty much open. And if you're doing any sort of spiritual work where you're trying to channel information, you're going to channel entities that are going to manipulate you towards the materialistic God. All right. So be very, very mindful of what you're calling out to the universe for and how, especially if you're begging, right? If you're out there begging, which I've done in my life before. I've been in tight situations, or and I'd be like, oh, please, like, this is not the way to go about things, all right? This is not the go out things. Sometimes you've acted a certain way to go down a certain path, and then you have 5, 10 years, 15 years of bad patterns. And then because something transpired, you want all of a sudden all of those bad patterns that you laid down for 15 years or how many amount of years, you want those bad patterns to just go away and everything to be okay. It doesn't work that way, right? It takes spiritual work, just like it took spiritual work for you to get in the dark hole, right? So be very, very mindful. Now, some of these people had good intentions during these channelings, right? Some of these people were trying to travel throughout the planet to avoid nuclear war, to avoid certain catastrophes. And this is certain things that we should be mindful of today, because there's certain things that we can help prevent through our collective consciousness, right? There's certain things that we can help prevent through our collective consciousness, and through the vibration of the collective consciousness is how we ultimately can change the climate. And people don't realize that the climate on our planet is going to become cold because humanity has become cold, right? We have become drones, basically, right? Like, look at the difference. I saw something that was very interesting today. Uh, I saw, those events that they have in Spain, the Ibiza or whatever. I saw one from like 1999, and then from today, like to 2024. 1999, the whole crowd was dancing, and like the energy was incredible, right? Now, I have my own ideas about these events anyway. I think they're not good events to go to anyway, but put that out aside for a minute. But then fast forward to the 2024 event, and you see everybody just standing there watching, holding their phones, recording what's going on stage, right? It's just like it's hard way the difference between, see, I used to be a street musician for a little while, right? I decided to just play my acoustic guitar and sing. This was before cell phones, right? I'm sure it would have went viral because there was times where I had a crowd around me, other musicians walked by, they joined in, and we had like a great moment. But nobody was there with cameras recording. It was like whoever was there experienced the realness of the moment, right? When you're behind a phone staring at something like through a camera recording it, you're not experiencing the moment of it, right? So if you're like at a concert, and instead of watching the concert, experiencing it with your eyes, you're watching the whole time through recording it on your phone, you're not going to really get the experience of the moment. You're not going to be at the same frequency as everyone else, on the same vibe. You make this sort of this bubble, like a torus bubble, and it starts to expand. And as people get on in that same bubble frequency, it expands over the whole concert. But that can't happen when each individual person is on their own little phone, right? It doesn't happen at all. It's talked about a lot in the book, um, Sacred Network by Chris Hardy, Dr. Chris Hardy. It's a woman. I have one of her books here, Dr. Chris Hardy. This is the Cosmic DNA book. She's good. She's got a book called Sacred Network that I have upstairs. She talks about semantic fields, and this is what I'm describing. This can happen from music very easily, very, very easily. She talks about semantic fields and what we call telluric energies, right? Telluric lines. And these are the lines of energies that we have on the planet and all over the universe, right? Glad you guys are here. We got 27 people in the chat room. Thank you guys. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you, everybody that has donated tonight as well. And of course, we are at the Mystical Spiral store. We'll take a few minute break here. This is our intercession here. You guys can find, oh, let me get out of here. All these stuff. You guys can find my website. Let me get to the website for you guys. Boom. You guys can find my website right here, the Mystical Spiral Store.com. Oh, I highly recommend everybody look at this package for $36. For $36, you get the inner transformation. These are blessed and programmed for inner transformation and spiritual awakening. You get a labradorite package. Get um you get a labradorite heart and a labradorite palm stone for in the package. And every one of the palm stones has purple and mixed flash on it. Really, really high quality palm stones here. And labradorite is one of the best for inner transformation and spiritual awakening, and we blessed these ones and ignited and programmed them for you guys. And for 36.99 to get that package is really an incredible deal. Everybody that does Reiki healing, they need it. Oh, thanks, Wraith. You love your opal pendant, man. You got a really good one as well. Yep, and I have all new products up every day. Really recommend some of these. Look at these, the purple mica specimen I just put up. This is also programmed. Really cool. I love purple mica. And guys, check out these Spirit Flame series pendants. Even oh, the pyrite specimen. Like this one, the gem one. Look at this bad boy. Check out this badass one. The light just explodes inside of this. This is a gem of red jasper. This is gem quality red jasper. I'll show you what regular red jasper looks like. This is regular red jasper. This one here, which is cool too. This is regular red jasper, but the gem one is the one that's see-through where the light goes inside. I like the way the silver looks on the red jasper though. And you guys can get these ones for 36.99, and that includes shipping, necklace material, and a free gift. What? 36.99, and you get necklace material with it, you get a free gift with it, and shipping is included in the price. So of course the ones that yeah, the red jasper is so awesome. Awesome. There's only one left of this. The other one went already. I got red jasper. And then I can also put tensor rings around them. Also, I am the go-to guy for Herkimer diamonds. I highly recommend this Herkimer diamond package for $108. You get the Herkimer diamond large necklace, and you get the Herkimer diamond with the spiral tensor charging plate. Really cool package there. And of course, that comes with necklace material and a free gift as well. And I have some Herkimer diamonds that have a hydro in them as well. I am getting coral jade very soon for you. Oh, the coral agate, I mean. The coral agate I'm getting, not the coral jade. The coral agate. Well, you guys, all there's huge sales up. Also, oh my God, the Ethiopian golden opal, one of my favorites. Also, this right here, I'm wearing the Dream Amethyst pendant with the tensor coil. I have one with regular copper. I can also make it with the silver. These are the best. These are the best to get. One of my favorite. The tensor coils. Oh yeah, this is a really, really high quality opal there. Um, maybe it's on the other page. Yeah, these ones right here. These are some of my favorite. Highly recommend these pendants, everybody. This one right here, this is over 44 inches of twisted copper, royal cubic copper wrapped around dream amethyst. Right now, I'm wearing, let me show you. Right now, I'm wearing one with silver, and I've been wearing it for weeks. It's my favorite. This is silver coated copper with the dream amethyst. This is a moonstone bracelet, and this is um colorful garden quartz. And this right here is onyx. This is silver and onyx. This is actually was given to me by my father when I was younger. This was my dad's ring. Um, I think it was my grandfather's before that. So I wear one of those every day, the Dream Amethyst ones. And this is like my favorite pendant. I can make it in silver as well. I have a few of those towers carved by our team as well. So this is the regular copper around it. I like the way the regular copper looks just as good as the silver one. Really cool, badass. And this is 432 hertz programmed, free shipping, free gift, and necklace material. So there's no extra charge. And let me tell you something. The free gifts that I give are highest quality. I don't give no rinky dinky free gifts. I give highest quality items, items that you would buy. So always do that with all of my customers. Yeah, we'll see the golden opal real quick. Yep. We go the golden opal is one of my favorites. Uh I have some of my own collector pieces of golden opal. This is the golden opal right here. Oh, it's on the first page, I think. Hold on. The golden opals right here. I only have a few pieces of this. They're rare and they're really amazing. Lemurian golden opal. Hold on. Come on, clear up. There it goes. Hold on. Let me get the look at that, dude. That Lemurian golden opal is so sick. Wow, look at that. Beautiful piece. And it's with antique copper. I didn't do the twisted copper because I felt like it would have covered too much of it. But one of my favorite pieces of Lemurian golden opal is I did a video of it on YouTube recently. You guys can see it on my shorts. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it too well on here, but it's so incredible. Yeah, you can't see it because it's like too dark, maybe. But it looks like a shark tooth. And this Lemurian golden opal, but it's like the colors in it are just intense. Fortunately, you can't see it. Nah, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work on here. Too much light. But it's really you could see guys can see it on my YouTube shorts. But if you like opal, I highly recommend the Fire Matrix opal that I have skull pendants of. Those are really incredible. Really incredible. I even could make them with the copper or silver tensor loops on top like this. This is a This is opal right here, Fire Matrix opal. You can see all the opal on the back. I have these skulls available as well. These are really amazing. I have a couple of skulls being made right now that are this size that are gem. Ones have already been claimed, the Starlight Rose Quartz one, but I have another one of Druzy Amethyst Agate that's coming. This is my black tourmaline in quartz, reticulated quartz. This is a gem right here. I love this guy. My favorite. But I just was finishing one of my customers or clients reading this afternoon with the Solar Council. You guys can get a Solar Council reading from me where I use a council of orange calcite skulls. They're great for solar plexus and solar alignment. I like to use orange calcite for that. And uh, this one, I use all different sizes for my Solar Council. First is the human size. This is 15 pounds. Orange calcite. Let me go back a little bit. Oh, I just saw an orb. Did you guys see the orb? It was just an orb when I took this out that went flying around. This is uh this is about 15 pounds. Orange calcite. Monster right here. Way. So you got that one. Then this is the second one. Orange calcite. This is the Solar Council. That's number two. And here's number three and four. Number three, the orange creamsicle one. And this is number four. These are my orange calcite council that I use. And usually I sit in a circle around the oak tree and I put one on north, south, east, and west of the oak tree. And I'll sit in the circle around the oak tree. I use the oak tree as a grounding antenna. And I put the orange calcite council around the oak tree. Yeah, so I talked about the different temples and the different references, solar references of cows. Of course, you have also the male references of the cow, the bull references, and you see the solar bull, the Apis bull, from ancient Egypt as well, right? Well, the Apis bull is literally the solar waters bull, the plasma bull, right? So, um, in ancient Egypt, let me show you what I mean by the Apis bull. Let me pull this up for you guys. How come it already kicked me out of my email here? Boop, boop, boop. All right, let me go. All right, share screen. All right, so this is one of the depictions of the Apis bull. Now, let me first tell you guys where we get the word Apis from. Now, in Egyptian, they're using Apis bull as Apis, Apis. Well, that is derived from the Vedic Apis, which is Apas. Apis in Vedic means the heavenly waters. So, AKA the solar waters, right? We have different type of waters in the cosmos. Ones that come from the sun could be considered the solar waters, the plasma streams, right? The cosmic ocean of a confluence of all sentient rivers of plasma, right? So in Vedic, Apas is the waters. So when you have the Apis bull, it's the solar waters bull. Now you can see this incredible, and remember the bull is the male forces of the light, right? So when you have cow references, it's the female forces of the rays of the sun. the female light. When you have bull references, it's the male forces of the light. Sometimes it's the destructive bull of the sun, right? The bull of the heavens. This is where the name Baal comes from, or Baal. He's the bull of the heavens, the bull of the sun, right? And now you can see, look at this. This is where Bacchus, right, which is Egypt, or Baka, the living soul of Ra, right? The bull of the mountain of the sun, the bull of the waters. Now you can see, look what he wears between his horns, a solar disc right here, right? And then between his horns is this solar disc. And then you have the solar asp, or the basilic, or uraeus, right? This is depicting the way the Birkeland currents move, or the solar emissions move, right? Or also the hooded cobra, right? That is the coronal hood, the golden hooded cobra. This is the golden solar asp. There's a reason why they have a hooded cobra. This is the coronal loop, the solar loop. That hood is the coronal loop. And that coronal loop travels like a snake through the plasma waves, right? This is the way the solar emissions travel, right? That's incredible symbolism here. And then look, they have two plumes extending from the solar disk. So they're talking about two massive coronal loops that we even describe as plumes. Two massive coronal loops being ejected and sent from the bull of the sun. Also, the vulture with the crooked neck traveling on the back of the bull, right? This is all solar references. And then you have this peculiar looking flower bulb, which to me is a light cone. Certain structures form within the plasma to accelerate the light, right? So this bulb right here, this is not just a lotus or a flower, right? On this plasma column here. This is all, look at the context here. We're talking about solar symbols, right? So you guys, let me show you what this structure actually is. So when you see that bell structure, right? Let me give you a perfect example of, say, a supernova explosion or a plasma wave that has that structure. So this is the Crab Nebula and Vela pulsar. These are pulsar waves that accelerate the supernova jet stream of light. These bell structures is what forms with sometimes explosions of light, plasma, or pulsars, right? And you'll see in ancient Egypt, a lot of times the solar deities are holding this structure, right? So this is the same structure that we see with the Apis bull. Same structure. This is not just a flower. This is a flower of light from the cosmos. This is a structure that forms within the plasma waves to accelerate the sound, to stream the jet stream of light, the sound of the light. And this is where we dive into the sound of the light on the Space Water podcast. This is episode 35, Clothed with the Sun, on the Space Water podcast, sponsored by the Mystical Spiral Store.com. Shout out to everybody that's donated in the chat room. We love you guys. We'll see you